We've been working on this story for a long time, and we'll tell you right up front that it's going to be hard to swallow at first. This week, we've heard the contention of UFO researchers that there's a secret government within our government. While that may be hard to believe coming from the UFO perspective, we've certainly learned in Watergate and the Iran-Contra scandal that factions within our government can and do pursue their own hidden agendas outside of the law, outside the control of Congress, or the knowledge of the American people. Speculation was heightened in 1984 when the Air Force seized nearly 90,000 acres around Groom Lake. The action was, by most accounts, illegal. During congressional hearings about the land grab, Congressman John Seiberling grilled the military about the legal authority used in the action and was told the authority was at a much, much higher level than the Air Force. Seiberling asked what authority is higher than the laws of the United States. The Air Force official said he could respond, but only in a closed briefing.
How did the taxi cab to get Elwood's things? This awful man.
It's closing all of a sudden.
And sharing this with us.
Bet there's nothing left to do.
His name is John Lear, and he is my guest today. Mr. Lear, thanks for being here.
Okay, George.
To begin with, you're a pilot, an airline pilot, captain. You have held 17 different world speed records at one time or another. You're a member of the famous Lear family that all Nevadans are pretty much familiar with, a former state senate candidate. You don't sound like the kind of guy who would get hooked up in something that a lot of people would say is a bunch of nonsense.
The Air Force has made an art form of ridiculing people who have talked about this thing. They've done an excellent job of covering it up for the last 40 years. George, basically what we're dealing with here is, I'll give you the bottom line.
Okay.
I'm not trying to sell it.
I want to hear your thesis.
I'm not trying to sell a book. I'm not trying to promote a lecture. This is based on what I've come across after intense research in the last year. And I have found out that the government has retrieved between 10 and 15 actual flying saucers, 3 of which have been in perfect condition, 1 of which they tried to fly.
One of the activities around the house we enjoy is washing the family car. Ain't she a beauty? And when we're finished, we enjoy making A&W root beer floats, flipping in the ice cream, then pouring in that rich, creamy A&W. Now you try it.
The power source is an antimatter reactor. They run gravity amplifiers. There's actually 2 parts to the drive mechanism. It's a bizarre technology. There's no physical hookup between any of the systems in there. They use gravity as a way.
Lazar's story is, by any standards, fantastic. He says he's telling it in order to protect himself. You saw more than one.
Yeah. The hangars are all connected together, and there are large bay doors between each one. And there were 9 total that I saw, each one being different.
Checking out Lazar's credentials proved to be a difficult task. He says he earned degrees in physics and electronics, but the schools we contacted say they've never heard of him. He also said he worked as a physicist at Los Alamos National Lab, where he experimented with one of the world's largest particle beam accelerators, a half-mile-long behemoth capable of generating 700 million volts. Los Alamos officials told us they had no records of a Robert Lazar ever working there. They were either mistaken or were lying. A 1982 phone book from the lab lists Lazar right there among the other scientists and technicians. A 1982 clipping from the Los Alamos newspaper profiled Lazar and his interest in jet cars. It too mentioned his employment at the lab as a physicist. We called Los Alamos again. An exasperated official told us he still had no records on Lazar. EG&G, which is where Lazar says he was interviewed for the job at S4, also has no records. It's as if someone has made him disappear.
Darn, only had 20 payments left.
My name is David Charles Grush.
My name is David Fravor. I'm
Ryan Fobbs Graves.
I was an intelligence officer for 14 years.
a retired commander in the United States Navy.
And I'm a former F-18 pilot with a decade of service in the U.S. Navy.
At the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, at the GS-15 civilian level, which is the military equivalent of a full bird colonel.
In 2004, I was a commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the world-famous Black Aces.
In 2014, I was an F-18 Foxtrot pilot in the Navy Fighter Attack Squadron 11, the Red Rippers.
I was a member of the UAP Task Force from 2019 to 2021.
We were attached to Carrier Wing 11, stationed on board the USS Nimitz, and had begun a 2-month workup cycle off the coast of California.
And I was stationed at NAS Oceana in Virginia Beach.
In 2019, the UAP Task Force Director asked me to identify all special access programs and controlled access programs.
On this day, we were scheduled for a 2v2 air-to-air training.
We began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace.
It was cleared to literally all relevant compartments.
When we launched off Nimitz, my wingman was joining up. We were told that the training was going to be suspended and we were going to proceed with real-world tasking.
At first, we assumed they were radar errors.
I was informed of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
The air controller was counting down the range to an object that we were going to, and we were unaware of what we were going to see when we arrived.
During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach,
to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it.
The controller had told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet.
2 F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP.
I became a whistleblower.
We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet.
The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter.
Following concerning reports from multiple esteemed and credentialed current and former military and intelligence community individuals.
Looked down a small, saw a white tic-tac object.
The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base.
The U.S. government is operating with secrecy above congressional oversight.
And moving very abruptly over the water like a ping pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses.
Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs.
As we started clockwise towards the object, my wizard and I decided to go down and take a closer look at the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe.
Biologics came with some of these recoveries.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to.
We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft.
Sometimes these reports are reoccurring.
As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingmen, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also.
Pilots are reporting UAP at altitudes that appear above them at 40,000 feet, potentially in low Earth orbit.
So as you started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cap point roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute."
Our squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sightings.
Today marking 21 years since the Phoenix Lights first appeared in the sky. To this day, nobody really knows what they were or where they came from.
It's been that long, huh?
Earlier this week, the New York Times and Politico revealed the existence of a secret government program to investigate UFO sightings.
It was especially focused on encounters by members of the military.
For the first time in more than half a century, a House panel is holding a public hearing on mysterious flying objects, popularly known as UFOs.
This video captured by a fighter pilot with a cell phone that shows a metallic object that you might miss if you blink.
I do not have an explanation for what this specific object is.
A Pentagon official revealed today that the U.S. government is investigating more than 600 potential UFO sightings.
The U.S. government has verified they're real, in the sense there are objects moving in the sky that we cannot identify. They're certain they do not belong to a foreign nation. They're not from Russia or from China. And third, we know that these objects are moving in ways that we cannot replicate explain, or even understand. So everyone who studied this in the US government will admit that privately.
Department of Defense said it was releasing the videos in order to clear up any misconceptions by the public on whether or not the footage that's been circulating was real or whether or not there is more to the videos. The aerial phenomena observed in these videos, they say, remain characterized as unidentified.
Rotating.